So today I have Grandma with me and I am just going to ask her a couple questions. Question number one, what country did your family immigrate from? Do you know when your family came over to the USA?
My family immigrated from Russia. My mother's family immigrated from Russia. And my father's family immigrated from what was Austria-Hungary, which was part of, I think it was Poland.
Galicia.
Yeah.
In the
in the early 1900s.
What were your parents' names? What were they like?
My parents' names were Betty and Philip, and I was going to say my other parents' names. I only have two. What were they like? Where they were very much in love, and
How would you describe your father?
how would I describe my father? He wanted to be successful. He worked very hard.
For his whole life?
His whole life. He was the youngest of 6 children, and my mother was the youngest of 3 children, but really 4 children, but her oldest sister died 2 weeks before she was born. So she was one of 3 children.
And the youngest also.
The
Yeah.
youngest also.
And what was she like?
And she was also a very hard worker. And she and my father worked very hard, and they created a business together and worked very hard on the business. And did a very good job at it. They created many businesses together. They were in the building business and the mobile home business, and
Okay.
Do you remember your grandparents?
yes, I do. Well, I remember my Grandma Anna and my Grandpa Joe later. They were my mother's parents. My father's parents, my grandma died. My Grandma Dora, who I was named after, died when my father was in his early 20s. So I never knew her. But my grandfather, Reuben, who my father's father, he died when I was about 3, and I have I have a vague memory of him. They said that he loved me and he used to play with me. And I only remember him sitting in a chair at my parents' house, but that could be from a picture my parents had of him with me. And I remember his cane, and I remember playing with his cane. But I remember my grandma and grandpa later, and that was Joseph later and Anna later. And I remember them because I used to go over to their house a lot, and they watched me, and I always played with them, and I went over there a lot.
Great Grandma Anna was around when I was younger too. I remember her.
Grandpa Joe died when I was a senior in high school.
So you knew the most of your growing up life.
Growing up life, yeah.
And they would be at your house all the time, or you'd be there.
Yeah, they normally came over for Sunday dinner, and
Like you do here?
yes.
Same thing. And Grandma was, by the way, her grandmother's favorite grandchild.
I was. My grandma used to tell me I was her favorite. I was, and my cousin Jimmy was.
Can you tell me about your parents' family?
About my parents' family.
Well, she started to tell about the brothers, like they had siblings, and
Do you want to talk about?
talk about Phil's. You want to talk about?
Oh, my father's family had 3 girls in his family and 3 boys. My father was one of 3 boys, and he had 2 older brothers, William and Benji, and then he had 3 older sisters. And his oldest sister, he used to call his mom a sister because she was 15 years older than him. And she treated him like a mother figure. So
And you see them all the time.
we used to see them all the time. And they used to come over to our house also. I don't know whether you remember. Do you remember them? Do you remember Aunt Ethel and Aunt Rose and Uncle Irving?
Sort of.
They came over a lot. And I'm trying to think.
And their kids, you knew their kids as your cousins and things like that.
Right. I knew my cousins. I had a lot of cousins. I had a lot of first cousins.
You still see a bunch or talk to a bunch.
Right.
A lot of them were older than you. They were closer to your parents' age.
Right. My first cousins. My father was the youngest, and he had lots of nieces and nephews that he used to like hang out with, and he used to hang out with and play around with and go to cabins with and go to the beach with. We have a very nice beach in Menor Headlands, and he used to go to the beach with them. And so he hung out with them.
And Betty's family?
And my mother's family, I had an Aunt Clara who, after my Aunt Esther died, was the oldest, and she was 13 years older than my mother. And then I had an Uncle Morris who was 11 years older than my mother. And my Aunt Clara couldn't have children. She had many miscarriages. My Uncle Morris had 2 sons, Jimmy and Johnny later, who were about, I'm trying to think how much older than me. Johnny's about,
5 years?
Yeah, 8 years.
5 years, something like that.
no, 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
And Jimmy's about 7 or 8 years older than me. And
And Aunt Clara lived long enough that Mommy met her.
did Mommy? Yeah.
Yeah,
Mommy
we saw her in the.
In
different
fact,
places.
oh no, you didn't meet her.
No.
But, no, you didn't meet her.
She died between when we got married and when we had Asher.
And Danny was named for her husband, who was Uncle Jules.
And she liked to brush my hair.
She loved to brush Danny's hair. That was her favorite thing to do on earth. She loved Danny.
She did love Daddy. She used to call him a piece of fruit, like, so sweet, like a piece of fruit.
And so special, like a
Yes.
piece of hand-picked fruit.
Yes.
She had all those little sayings. And she was a good cook.
Where were you born?
I was born in Cleveland, Ohio, at University Hospital. It was called McDonald Hospital for Women. It was called McDonald House at that time. And that's where all my children were born, at McDonald Hospital. Every one of them, they were all born. The 4 boys were all born at McDonald Hospital, which was part of University Hospital.
Where did you live when you were young?
When I was young, I lived in Beechwood first. First, I lived on East Cleveland. When I was first born,
Terrace Road.
I was born and taken home to Terrace Road for a short time. And then I lived with my grandparents, with my mom and dad. And then we moved to Beechwood, where I lived until I was going into 4th grade. And then my dad built a house in Gates Mills that is now where you live. He had picked out that lot many, many years before, and he finally built on the land when I was going into 3rd grade, and then we moved in when I was going into 4th grade.
Who else is in 4th grade?
So that's where we lived until I went to college. And then I came home for a couple summers, and then I got married.
Where your siblings? Did you get along as kids?
Who are my siblings? My siblings are Robert and Esty, Robert Norman and Esty Ruth. Do we get along as kids? Robert was 4 years younger than me, and Esty was 5.5 years younger than me. They played together as children, and I was treated more like their babysitter. So I was treated more like the caretaker.
What did you like to do for fun as a kid?
Well, we used to travel a lot. Grandpa and Grandma used to take us all over the place. So we traveled a lot. And I used to go to the art museum for fun on Saturdays. I always took classes there. And on Sundays, I used to go to the JCC, and I always belonged to a little club of girls. We used to belong, and I'd take classes there. If I didn't go to the youth group there on Sundays, I'd take art classes and pottery classes. I loved art. So I would always go take pottery classes or drawing classes. I was always doing stuff at the JCC on Sundays. I went to Sunday school in the morning, and then in the afternoon, my daddy would go to work at the mobile home park, and my mom would take us, the three of us, to the JCC and take classes. So that's what I did for fun.
You ice skated?
I used to ice skate. I started ice skating when I was 3 years old, and I was a very good ice skater.
Where did you go to school? What was it like?
I went to Hilltop School in Beechwood through third grade, from kindergarten through third grade. I went to Park Synagogue Preschool, and then I went to Hilltop Elementary School. And then we moved to Gates Mills, and I went to Gates Mills Elementary School. And then I went to Mayfield Junior High School in 7th, 8th grade. And then I went to Glen Oak School, which was a school on the Gilmore campus for girls. And it was a very nice school. It was an open classroom kind of school. It was run by the Sacred Heart nuns. And it was a wonderful school. I enjoyed it. A number of people didn't enjoy it, but I enjoyed it, and I learned very well that kind of learning. And then I went to Briarcliff College. Both of those schools no longer exist. Glen Oak morphed into Gilmore Academy, and Briarcliff College morphed into Pace University, and my schools no longer exist.
But you would come to Hawken a lot to visit me.
I did. I used to go to Hawken a lot.
She almost got an honorary degree at Hawken. They used to let people come visit for the day.
So I used to go to classes with Daddy.
What activities did you do in school?
What activities I did everything. I used to be very involved. I was very active at school. I was in a lot of clubs.
Plays?
I was a big, I'm sorry?
You did plays?
I did plays, but I was also a volunteer. I was a big volunteer with a lot of things. So I used to do everything. I went to Sunday school, and I went to Temple High School, which you didn't have to do once confirmation was over in 9th grade. But I continued high school because two of my best friends, besides them being in regular school that I went with two of my best friends to Sunday school. So Karen and Bonnie. So I used to go to Sunday school so I could be with them.
What was different about growing up when you did compared to growing up now?
When I grew up, we had everybody had landlines, and we had 3 landlines.
A home phone.
Home lines. And you didn't have cell phones.
Or computers.
or computers.
Or tiny computers you could have on my wrist.
Correct.
No, none of that. What else was different? We only had 3 telephones. Three television stations. I'm trying to think.
There was no internet.
No internet.
Medical care was different.
Medical care was very different. When Grandpa Phil got sick and he had a heart attack, he was in the hospital for like months.
And when you had a heart attack, how long were you there?
I was there a short
4
time.
days?
Yeah.
Thank God that they kept me a little longer than normal because I got sick and Daddy and Grandpa and Uncle Jordan were there and my body went out and
They saved you.
The real learning experience is make friends in the medical industry.
That's right.
It's good to know people who are in medicine.
what happened was that
Your good friend Janice, Mrs. Howa.
Mrs. Howa.
Right.
Janice George her husband is my cardiologist,
The heart doctor.
the heart doctor, and I was talking to Daddy and Uncle Jordan and Grandpa, and my heart stopped, and they couldn't get it to start again, and they kept using those paddles. Have you ever seen them on TV where they use paddles?
Everybody jump away.
They say clear.
Clear. Poof. Poof. Yeah, you'll see it because they do it all the time in the medical shows.
And
They use an electric charge. They shock Grandma to get her back.
Basically like a lightning bolt almost into her chest to try and get it to
and I
jumpstart.
kept saying, when I would come back, I'd go, please stop that.
Ow.
Hurts.
Ow, that hurts.
That hurts. Please stop that. And they would laugh, and then I'd go out again, and they'd do it again, and I'd go, please stop that.
It wasn't as funny at the time, but looking back at it.
If Grandma had gone home the day earlier, then she wouldn't be here. So it's good he kept her because if she'd have had that at home, we didn't have the paddles. And so Grandma would have died. So that's why we're always happy Dr. Howard was a friend and decided one more day.
Now she's got pedals built in.
Now I have a defibrillator and a pacemaker in my chest.
So if her heart stops, it starts shocking her automatically.
What was your first job? Did you like it?
My first job was a camp counselor at an overnight camp. I did like it, except I was to do all the kind of grunt work. So, like, I had to go in and shower all the girls, and I had little girls. And I remember getting hit in the head and everything else, because all these little girls I had to wash their hair. So they
Think about the mess you make in the shower and then make like 20 kids.
And they were like Levi's age.
They were Levi's age, and I had to go in the shower with them, so I had a bathing suit on and flip-flops, and I'm trying to wash all their hair, and they're smacking me in the head, and I'm trying to wash their hair, and I'm losing a contact, and it was the funniest thing, but not at the time. That was my first job. I was an overnight counselor.
Which new technology have you found the most helpful in your life?
The phone. That's the most.
Cell phone?
Your iPhone or cell phone?
Cell phone. Cell phone.
Oh, and the pacemaker.
The pacemaker.
That's probably number one.
I have to say that's number one, the pacemaker.
I was about to say that.
And you know what's cool about the technology? When Grandma's in bed, it automatically transfers data back to her doctor about what's going on with her heart.
In our bedroom, we have a little machine.
And it can test it?
It can test it.
So it
I've
can make,
actually seen that.
It's on Grandpa's side.
We'll look after
Behind
it.
the
We can look after it.
Yeah.
but it tests it, so it makes her heart go faster or slower.
It doesn't. I'll say to Grandpa, oh my God, they're testing me. Or something's going on, I'm feeling funny. And we get Grandpa gets a notification that says, oh, we just tested Grandma and she's fine.
Which technology do you find to be the most annoying? Which new technology?
No, that's right.
Yeah.
Which new technology?
Could also be the phone.
Siri.
Siri.
I find that annoying.
It freaks her out.
You can turn that off. There's ways to turn it off.
We don't have one.
You do on your phone.
I know, and I find it very
I
annoying.
can turn that off for you.
Yeah, I find that very annoying.
But other people's
I
pop
find
ups.
it invasive.
Right.
I find it very invasive.
Well, like what if it's an emergency and you need to call someone?
I find it very invasive.
So they have a number.
I find that very invasive.
How did you meet Grandpa?
Grandpa and I met at dancing school. I was 14 years old and in 9th grade, and he was 15 years old and in 10th grade. And we went to dancing school. And I used to tell your uncles and your father that you could meet your future wife at dancing school. And they used to go, ew, 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 ew.
I didn't. None of us did.
None of them met their future wives at dancing school.
But Hunter met some friends there.
He did. He did. I met Daddy at dancing school. I met Grandpa at dancing school.
What is your earliest memory?
Do you know, I was thinking about that. My earliest memory is getting off the bus from Park Synagogue. It was a little van, and dropping some colored pencils, and my dog Jacques running down. We lived on top of a hill. Our house was on a hill on Glen Hill. And he ran down to see me, and me getting off the van. That's my earliest memory. So I must have been, and I don't even know if it's real, but that's my earliest memory.
What world event has the most impact on you?
That's interesting. You know what? I think yesterday, I hadn't thought about it, but yesterday,
Day before yesterday. Yeah.
day before yesterday.
Tell them what it is, because they won't remember.
Yeah. President Trump, I don't feel has been a good president. And he proved he was a very weak, very nasty, mean man. And he talked to some very mean, not nice people, and he convinced them, he's been telling lies, and he convinced them to walk down to the Capitol and break in and hurt some people. And I think that,
And telling lies that he won the election even though he didn't. And we're going to have President Biden replace him, but he doesn't believe it's real. He thinks the media is lying. So he told some people that he continually told lies to a point where people believe him.
mm-hmm. And I don't believe, lying I feel is the worst thing you can do. My feeling is, tell me the truth, and I can deal with anything you do as long as you tell me the truth. My feeling is, don't ever lie to me, because I can't deal with it. If you tell me the truth, I can deal with anything. It's when you lie to me.
Do we say the same thing? Yes, we have.
He's never said that.
What?
He's never said don't lie?
Well, he said don't lie, but he's never said what Grandma just said.
Okay.
Well, that's what he means.
Yeah, that's right, because he would never disagree with Grandma.
No, he believes that if you tell him the truth, he'll deal with whatever you tell him. He may be upset about it, but he'll deal with it, because the truth is always the best, and you can deal with the truth.
This next one Dad really doesn't like. What was Dad like growing up?
He was a beautiful, beautiful baby. And he was a sweetheart. And he and I were like fire and water.
Fire and oil.
Fire and oil.
They combusted. They have different approaches to things.
Although we, as far as sports goes, we work together.
Can you believe Grandma pitched?
I used to pitch to Daddy, and
Because I couldn't. I was very bad at baseball. That's why Daddy tells you to try and be good enough so that you can just participate. I was not good enough to participate.
I used to pitch to Daddy, and we used to work, the two of us, so he could hit a ball. And he was really good at that. Because he used to get frustrated. And so we would work together so he could do that. And that's what you have to do. You have to practice. And that's what we used to do.
This is our very last question.
Okay.
What has been your favorite family vacation?
I don't know.
You could give one when you were a kid with your family growing up, and one with all of
What
us.
was your favorite trip when you went with your family?
What was your favorite trip you went on with your parents? Because you used to travel a lot.
We did travel a lot. The one I went on with my parents, my favorite trip, was when my parents took me to like 9 countries in Europe when I was 12 years old. Just me, not my brother and sister. We had the best time.
Particularly in Spain. When
Yeah.
your dad had to lift you up and
Oh yeah, and I was vomiting in Toledo. I picked up a bug.
And what was your favorite trip with your children?
With my children. With just my children or my
Whatever you
my
want.
Whatever you
extended-
want.
Well, my children, my favorite trip was our first trip to Hawaii. And then with my extended, all my children was our trip to the Grand Caymans.
Did you like that too, Asher?
That was my favorite trip with everybody, was with all 11 of us. But my favorite trip with just the 6 of us was the trip to Hawaii.
Where we stayed in a hotel right on the beach.
Right, Monolani.
You snorkel there.
Yeah, that was my favorite trip for the 6 of us.
Oh wait, so I should ask Levi's question. What was your favorite color?
My favorite color was purple. And my bridesmaids wore purple.
What was your favorite food growing up?
Oh my gosh. I used to go to my grandma's a lot. A lot.
She was a really good cook.
My grandma was a phenomenal
Anna, right?
Grandma Anna.
Mhm.
Grandma Anna and I were very close. Very close. And she taught me to cook.
And that's why you're very good.
Thank you. My grandma was a wonderful cook and baker. Wonderful. I used to go over there and she used to teach me how to make everything. And my grandma used to make me a hamburger and
Who likes hamburgers?
and mashed potatoes.
You could take early mashed potatoes, huh?
Oh my gosh. That's what she used to make
And you'd
me.
sit where?
I'd sit in front of the TV in her room on a little chair, and she would bring it up to me. And then when I was older, she would make me gedempted chicken because my mother was a horrible cook.
What's the dip to chicken?
It's chicken with like tomatoes and carrots and celery
In like a pot, yeah?
in a pot. She would roast it. She would make me chicken like that.
Alright, folks, that's the last question. Thank you for watching.
Thanks.